The front door creaked open with the familiar sound that used to mean home. But this time it felt like something ancient, waking up something that should have stayed buried. Wash the dishes properly, you useless girl. That was the first sentence I heard. Not a hello, not a welcome. Just those words, sharp, cruel, echoing from the kitchen like a slap. And then, laughter. Not mine, not strangers. Yasmin's daughters, giggling from the couch, like royalty on their thrones. Stepped fully into the hallway, my carry-on wheels bumping against the cracked tile. 6 hours from the airport, no sleep, no warning. Just a mother's instinct and a whisper in my gut that wouldn't shut up. And there she was, my daughter, 6 years old, shoulders drawn up like armor, scrubbing dishes, standing on a plastic stool barely high enough to reach the faucet. Her little hands moved frantically, as if speed might protect her from criticism. But it didn't. She's not like Yasmin's girls. My mother's voice floated over the clang of plates. They know how to behave. I didn't breathe. I just watched my daughter flinch when the sponge slipped. Watched her glance sideways at the laughter behind her, but never back at the door whenever at me. She didn't know I was there. She was too focused on surviving. She can't even rinse properly, my father muttered from the hallway. That did it. Enough. My voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Everything stopped. My mother turned slowly. Oh, you're here. I walked into the kitchen. The smell of bleach, sweat, and something fried hung in the air. My daughter froze, unsure if this was help or more humiliation. We were just teaching her, my mother said. Teaching. I looked from her to the soap bubbles clinging to my daughter's trembling wrists. Screaming at a child while her cousin's laugh is teaching. My father waved a dismissive hand. Don't be so emotional, Vivian. Kids need discipline. I didn't argue. What was the point? They weren't talking to me, they were talking to their idea of me. The obedient daughter, the quiet one, the one who always fixed things and said thank you, even when she got nothing back. But I saw my daughter's face. She wasn't crying, but her eyes were full. She had already learned that in this house, tears meant nothing. That silence was safer. That invisibility was a shield. No more. I reached for her hand. We're going. My mother stepped forward. Don't be ridiculous. She hasn't finished the dishes. I turned to my daughter. You don't have to finish anything here. Yasmin finally looked up from her phone. Vivian, what's the big deal? They're just chores. My girls do them all the time. No, Yasmin, your girls lounge and laugh. Mine gets barked at like she's staff. She's 6. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just picked up my bag, tucked my daughter's wet hands into mine, and walked out. Outside, the air smelled like gasoline and dusk. We got into the car, and I didn't say a word. My daughter didn't ask questions. She just sat, quiet, folded into herself like a paper bird. It wasn't the first time they'd crossed the line, but it was the last. We drove for hours, even though my place was only 40 minutes away. I needed time to think. I needed time to cool the fire inside me that was dangerously close to turning to ash. I pulled into a gas station and let the engine idle. Mum, I turned. Her voice was so small, it felt like it might vanish if I breathed too hard. I didn't mean to do it wrong. I reached across the seat, cupped her face gently. Sweetheart, this was never about you. You didn't do anything wrong. But Grandma is not in charge of how we live. She blinked slowly, unsure. Are we in trouble? No, I said, meaning every word. We're free. That night, after I tucked her in at home, I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then I typed the name of the loan officer I'd worked with for 6 years. Their house was still under my name. They had long forgotten I paid the mortgage, quietly, month after month. It started after Dad's stroke. Yasmin couldn't afford it then. After one of her investments went sideways, I took over. No ceremony, no thank you, just silence. Well, silence works both ways. I clicked cancel autopay. Then I called the bank. Hi, yes, I'd like to stop payments on account ending in 3491, effective immediately. The voice on the other end hesitated. Are you sure, Ms. Bennett? That account is for a residential property, I'm sure. Would you like to set a final date? Today. The next morning, I packed my daughter's lunch while she hummed softly at the table. No flinching, no darting eyes, just a child being a child. It was a sound I hadn't realized I missed. The sound of peace. And yet, in my inbox, the storm was Already gathering. Subject: urgent missed payment notice from Northeast Bank Mortgage Division 2, vivian.bennett@email.com. I deleted it. They'd find out soon enough. 3 days later, my phone rang. "Vivian," my mother said, trying to sound casual. "The bank just sent us a weird letter. Says we missed a payment. Did they call you too?" I leaned against the counter. Let the sunlight hit my face. "No mistake, Mum. I stopped paying." There was silence. "Wait, you... What?" "I stopped paying for the house. Effective last week." "You're joking." "No." But her voice cracked. "Why would you do that? We thought you were helping us out of love." Family doesn't scream at a 6-year-old like she's free labor. "You're being emotional again. You know your father." I know exactly what he said. The call ended with stutters. I didn't feel guilt. I felt something better. Control. Not over them, over my story, and over hers. Yasmin called the next day. "Vivian, what the hell are you doing? Taking back what was mine? Mum and Dad will be devastated." "They weren't devastated when your kids got fresh juice and mine got tap water. They're just used to her being quiet. She's quiet because she's terrified." "Pause, you're blowing this out of proportion." "No," I said. "You're just used to no one calling you out." 3 days later, I got another call, this time from Dad. "Vivian, please." He sounded older, smaller, not the barking figure I'd grown up with. "The bank said foreclosure's already in motion. Just 1 more month, that's all we need." "Do you remember what you called my daughter that day?" Silence. "Well, nothing then. There's nothing left to say." Click. That night, my daughter danced while brushing her teeth. She twirled in her pajamas like the world had stopped spinning in the wrong direction. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was holding my breath. I was exhaling. The foreclosure notice wasn't nailed to the door just yet, but the countdown had begun, and they still didn't see it coming. At 7:12 a.m. on a Thursday, I got a group text from Yasmin. "Brunch at Mum's Sunday. Bring Ava if you want, if I want." As if she hadn't stood there, watching my daughter scrub dishes like punishment while her girls scrolled TikTok. As if the last conversation we had hadn't ended with me hanging up. I stared at the message for a full minute before deleting it. No reply, no explanation. Let them feel the silence they always forced on me. When Dad had his stroke, everything changed, but not the way I expected. He didn't ask me to step in. No one did. But the bills started piling up. Yasmin was managing a launch for one of her skincare lines, and Mum... Well, Mum just sighed a lot and said things like, "We'll figure it out," while blaming the economy. I figured it out. I called the bank, transferred the mortgage into my name, set up automatic payments. It was supposed to be temporary, just until Dad got back on his feet. But temporary turned into years, into forgotten birthdays, into my daughter receiving broken toys while Yasmin's girls got tablets and brand-name dresses. The house stayed theirs on paper, but I was the one keeping the roof over their heads. I never told Ava. She didn't need that weight. I didn't tell anyone, not even my closest friends. It wasn't about recognition. It was about duty, or maybe shame. I kept hoping they'd notice, that they'd say thank you, but gratitude never came. Just more expectations. And now, the bill had finally come due. 3 days after the missed payment notice, Mom called again. "Vivian," she said, "too sweet. I made your favorite soup yesterday. Ava would have loved it." I didn't answer. "We were just thinking maybe there's been a misunderstanding. The bank keeps calling. It's probably a mix-up. Can you check?" "No mix-up." A pause. "But you've always taken care of things." "I'm done taking care of people who mistreat my child." "Oh, Vivian," she said, voice trembling, "you're going to destroy this family over a tantrum." I almost laughed. Tantrum? No. Tantrums were impulsive. This was surgical, precise, earned. "I'm not destroying anything," I said. "I'm just done funding the illusion." Then I hung up. At home, something began to shift. Ava wasn't the same child from a week ago. She started sleeping with both eyes closed instead of half open, like she had to stay alert. She asked to help cook, not because she was scared to be left out, but because she was genuinely curious. She smiled more, laughed more. One night, while we were brushing our teeth side by side, she looked at me through the mirror and said, "I like our house better." "Why's that?" I asked, trying not to cry. "No one watches me here," she said. "I can just be." Yasmin called the next morning. Her voice was full of teeth behind a velvet curtain. Vivian, you're making a scene. Funny, I said. I haven't said a word, but this affects everyone. Mom's barely sleeping. Dad's panicking. We can fix this. I already did, she scoffed. By throwing your own family on the street. They threw my daughter under the bus. Multiple times. You're really going to let a 6-year-old's whining ruin everything we've built? That's when I knew. She didn't get it. She never would. Everything you built was on my back, I said. And I'm done carrying it. I ended the call. She texted 5 minutes later. Don't do something you'll regret. I didn't reply, because I already regretted not doing it sooner. That weekend, the house hosted another one of Yasmin's small events. Someone posted photos online, sparkling lemonade on crystal trays, cupcakes arranged like floral wreaths, her girls posing in pastel dresses by the hedge. It was like watching people throw a masquerade ball on a sinking ship. Ava was sitting beside me on the couch, working on a drawing. Are those my cousins? She asked, pointing at the phone screen. Yes. She studied the picture carefully. Why do they always wear the same clothes? They like matching. A pause. They're not mean in pictures. I swallowed hard. No, sweetheart, they're not. She didn't ask to go. She didn't ask why we weren't invited. She just went back to her drawing this time, sketching a house with only 2 people on the porch. Us. By midweek, the official letter arrived. Final notice before foreclosure. 15 days remaining. I scanned it and filed it away. That was the day the phone calls turned frantic. Dad called 3 times before noon. Mom left 5 voicemails in one afternoon, each one more shrill than the last. Yasmin sent a voice note that ended with "You're tearing this family apart, Vivian." But I wasn't. Not really. I was just refusing to hold it together alone anymore. That night, Ava woke up from a dream and found me in the kitchen. "Can I have some milk?" she asked, rubbing her eyes. "Of course, baby." As I poured it, she leaned against the counter, watching me. "Is Grandma mad at you?" I froze, then set the glass in front of her. "Why do you ask?" "She said bad things when I was doing dishes. Then we left. Then no one called anymore." I knelt beside her. "You know how sometimes people don't treat us kindly?" She nodded. Double quotes. "Well, it's not your fault, and it's not okay. So I'm making sure we stay with the people who treat us like we matter. Like you." "Exactly." She nodded, took a sip, then smiled. "Okay, can I have cookies too?" We both laughed. A week later, I walked by her room and caught her mid-song spinning in her socks, arms wide open, singing a made-up tune about bubble birds and chocolate sunshine. My throat caught. She was blooming. And it hit me. All this time, I thought I was protecting her. But really, I had been keeping her planted in poisoned soil, hoping love would grow in a place built on control, comparison, and cruelty. Now, finally, we were somewhere she could take root, and parents. My sister still hadn't noticed the cracks in their castle, but they would. Soon. The auction was set for a Tuesday morning. There was no dramatic countdown, no shouting at the courthouse steps, no slow-motion scene of betrayal. It was just business, cold, clean, and irreversible. I didn't go. I didn't need to, because the moment I clicked cancel on that autopay weeks ago, I had already walked out of that house in my mind. Not just the structure, the ideology. It stood for the throne they mistook for a home. The kingdom was collapsing, and I was done being the servant. They didn't realize right away, even after the notice was nailed to the door, even after the bank stopped answering their frantic voicemails. They still moved through the house like it was untouchable, still poured lemonade for Yasmin's girls in crystal glasses, while Ava once got water in a chipped mug, still ordered her to sit properly, to speak less, to be more like her cousins, still thought they were safe. But the walls they used to assert their status were starting to echo, and this time, no one was listening. Meanwhile, in our home the real things were changing. Ava slept deeply. No more tossing. No clenched fists under the pillow. She started drawing again, pages filled with bright colors and smiling stick figures. One morning, I found a picture she'd taped to her wall. The 2 of us, holding hands under a yellow sun. Our names were written in wobbly bubble letters above. Us. "This is our forever house," she told me when I pointed to it. I nodded yes, it is. We had neighbors now, friendly ones. Mrs. Clark from across the hall brought over homemade banana bread one evening, still warm in the pan. "You too, settling in okay?" she asked. Ava beamed. "We planted basil." Mrs. Clark grinned. Then I expect pasta night soon. And then there was Miss Foster Ava's new teacher. She was young, with silver rings on her fingers and kind eyes that looked at children like they were people, not problems. On our first conference call, she said, "I've never seen a child adapt so fast. She's confident, expressive, curious. You've clearly built something strong at home." Tears welled up in my eyes, but I blinked them away. "Thank you," I whispered, because she didn't know the whole story. How much soil had to be replaced before Ava could grow. How long I spent wondering if I was doing enough, or too much. But now I knew I had done exactly what needed to be done. The day the house was sold, the group chat exploded. "Aunt Lorna, you didn't have to go this far. Vivian, this was cruel. Uncle Victor, I'm sure there was another way. Let's talk." Even Grandma, who once told me girls like Ava needed to be toughened up, sent me a Facebook message. "Why, Vivian?" But nothing stung like the message from my mother. It came in the middle of the night, just 2 sentences. "She's not one of us. That girl you had, maybe she takes after her father." I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen. That girl, my daughter. The one who once wrote me handmade cards when I was sick. The one who scrubbed dishes just to feel accepted. The one they mocked, cornered, crushed. They hadn't learned a damn thing, even after losing the house. After every call I didn't return. After every thread between us frayed and snapped. They still thought I'd break. That guilt would send me running back with open arms and patched up payments. But what they didn't understand was this. The day I walked into that kitchen and heard my child being told she wasn't enough, something in me turned to steel. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the line, and I drew it around her like a wall no one could cross again. Ava never asked about them. Not once. Not about the cousins. Not about Grandma. Not about that house. Instead, she sang in the mornings and played make-believe after school. She danced on the hardwood floors in socks, spinning like the world finally had room for her. We hosted her birthday a few weeks later, nothing big, but everything meaningful. Her teacher came, a few friends from her new class. Mrs. Clark baked a chocolate cake. My best friend from college showed up with a giant box of markers and a handmade card. No fake smiles, no conditional kindness. No one asked her to earn her place. She opened her gifts carefully, whispering thank you after each. One then ran around the living room squealing with joy. At the end of the night, I tucked her in and kissed her forehead. "Mom," she whispered, "this was the best birthday ever." "No one yelled," she added, smiling into her pillow. That's when I knew. The foundation was holding. The roots were taking, the garden was growing. 2 days later, another message came through. "Yasmin. You destroyed them. Dad's blood pressure is out of control. Mom cries every day. I hope you're proud of yourself." No mention of Ava. No ownership of anything. I didn't respond, because when you've spent a lifetime being the afterthought, you learn not to explain yourself to people who only ever listened to the version of you that served them. But then came one final message from my mother. No venom, no exclamation points. Just quiet poison. "You really think you're better than us now? That house raised you." I stared at the words. Then, slowly, I typed, "No, I raised myself in its shadows. I raised a daughter in its cracks. And now, I'm raising hell by not staying quiet anymore." I hit send. Then I blocked the number. Blocked the group chat. Blocked every digital ghost of who they used to pretend to be. I didn't do it in anger. I did it for Ava, because some cuts don't bleed, they echo. And I refused to let her hear the echoes anymore. That night, Ava showed me another drawing. This one had a garden, real soil, real sun, 2 figures kneeling together, planting something. She pointed. "That's us. We planted tomatoes today, remember?" I nodded. "I do. Do you like it?" "I love it." She hesitated. "Can I hang it in the kitchen?" "Of course," I said. "This is your home too." She smiled and ran to get tape, and I stood there, heart full, thinking, this is the start. Not just of a new chapter, but a new bloodline. One where love isn't bartered or broadcast. One where no child gets told they're less. One where women like me stop apologizing for protecting the softest parts of themselves. The real family. We were building it from scratch, and from the ruins of favoritism. Something honest was finally growing. There's a moment, after pain loosens its grip, when you feel strangely empty, not broken, just ... weightless, like you've been holding something heavy for so long. your arms forget how to rest. That's how it felt in the weeks after the auction. The calls had stopped. The venom dried up. The silence was different now, no longer suffocating, just quiet. And in that quiet, something else began to grow. Not revenge, not triumph, something simpler, something stronger. Rebuilding. Rebuilding. I started small, Ava, and I planted cherry tomatoes in old pots on the balcony. She named them every single one. There was Sir Red, Tommy the Third, and one she simply called Gary. We watered them every morning before school, sunlight warming our skin. I'd pack her lunch while she sang songs about dancing vegetables. No more flinching, no more watching her back, just childhood in its purest form. One afternoon, while she painted at the kitchen table, I opened my laptop and started writing a mission statement. Nothing fancy, just a vision, a place for kids like Ava, kids dismissed, overlooked, pushed to the corners of rooms that were supposed to feel safe, a place for mothers like me, too exhausted, protective, trying to break cycles with nothing but instinct and stubborn love. I called it Rise Before Rain. No press, no donors, just quiet action. Each week, I carved time after work to build it. I contacted therapists, teachers, artists, asked for volunteers, partnered with a local youth center. The foundation provided therapy vouchers, mentorship, art supplies, and after-school programs for kids who were struggling in silence. I didn't tell anyone in the family. They wouldn't understand. It wasn't for them anyway. It was for the girl I used to be. And the girl I was raising now. Ava was flourishing. Her drawings changed. No more corners filled with black scribbles or frowning stick figures standing alone. Now she painted houses with her name on the mailbox, trees with tire swings, tables with room for everyone. One night, I was organizing old storage boxes when I heard her voice from behind me. Can I throw this away? She held up a framed photo, her standing next to my mother, about 2 years ago. Her smile in the picture was stiff, her shoulders tense, her eyes empty. I took a breath. If you want to, yes. She didn't even hesitate. She turned, walked to the trash bin, and dropped it in. No guilt, no doubt, just done. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. That was the moment I knew. The cycle wasn't just broken, it was gone. And Ava, she was blooming. Not because I gave her everything, but because I finally stopped letting people take pieces of her. We marked a few milestones that month. Her first full week without nightmares, her first solo piano recital at school, just 3 keys on a toy keyboard, but she called it a concert. We baked a cake for no reason one night. No occasion, no candles. She cracked the eggs herself and got flour in her hair. When it rose in the oven, she squealed and hugged me like we'd won a national award. That cake tasted like freedom. That hug felt like purpose. At bedtime one evening, as I tucked her in, she looked at me with sleepy eyes. Mom, do you think we'll ever go back? To the old house. Her voice wasn't scared, just curious. I smiled. No, sweetheart, we already went back. She furrowed her brows. When I leaned in and kissed her forehead, we came back to ourselves. That's what matters. She grinned, satisfied with the answer, and rolled over. Within minutes, she was asleep. A few days later, I received an email from a single mum across town. She'd heard about Rise before. Rain through her son's school counselor. Her message was simple. Thank you. I thought I was the only one. I wrote back immediately. You're not, and you never were. That's what this whole thing was about. Not fixing the past, not dragging the pain behind me like a badge, just building new things with the tools. I still had hope, grit, compassion, and love. Not the loud, performative kind. The kind that stays. The kind that heals. We threw a small dinner at our apartment to celebrate the foundation's first full month. Miss Foster came. Mrs. Clark brought lasagna. Ava helped decorate with paper flowers and hand-drawn signs. At one point during dessert, she climbed onto a chair and held up a plastic cup, a toast, she declared. Everyone stopped, smiling. She cleared her throat dramatically. 2 nice people and new tomatoes. Laughter filled the room. The real kind. The kind that doesn't leave bruises. I caught her eye across the table and nodded, blinking away tears. She was her own person now. One that didn't shrink to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. A few days later, we walked past the edge of our old neighborhood while heading to the park. Ava was skipping, swinging her backpack like a pendulum. Then she slowed down. I followed her gaze. She was staring toward the old street, just barely visible behind a line of trees. "Is the house still there?" she asked. "Yes," I said softly, "but it's not ours anymore." She nodded. Then, after a beat, "Do you miss it?" I thought about the cracked teacups, the long silences, the rooms filled with judgment, the doors that were open in structure but locked in spirit. "No," I answered truthfully. She was quiet for a second longer, then asked the question that mattered. "Are we ever going back?" I smiled, steady, certain, calm. "No, sweetheart, we came back to ourselves. That's more than enough." She nodded like she understood something deep in her bones, and kept walking. The sun followed us down the sidewalk, and for the first time in years, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. I wasn't running anymore. I was planting. And everything we needed was already growing. 2 months after the auction, the whispers began. They didn't call me anymore, not directly, but the stories trickled in through mutual friends, distant cousins, old co-workers who still followed someone in the family. She lost it. Vivian's unstable. She stole the house out of spite. Yasmin, it seemed, had a full narrative. Ready? According to her, the bank tricked me. I panicked. I ruined everything out of jealousy. Her version of events never included ever mentioned what they did to a child. So small she needed a stool to reach the sink. They never told the truth about the name-calling, the favoritism, the humiliation served cold and daily. That part didn't fit their story, so I said nothing. Because here's the thing about truth. It doesn't need a microphone. It stands. Even when you're standing alone, I had better things to do than chase ghosts. Ava's school invited me to speak at their family resilience panel. I almost said no, but Ava begged me to do it. "You always help people," she said. "Maybe some of them need help too." So I said yes. I stood in a small room filled with folding chairs and nervous parents. I talked about rise before rain, but I didn't mention names or details, just a message. Sometimes, the bravest thing we can do for our children is stop pretending that pain is tradition. One woman cried quietly in the back row. A man nodded slowly the whole time, and Ava, she sat front and center, eyes wide, smiling, with pride. Afterward, she whispered, "You looked like a superhero." I held her hand and whispered back, "So do you." She was blooming in ways I hadn't expected. One afternoon, she brought home a painting from school. It was a giant house, with open windows and sunbeams pouring in. A table sat in the middle with 4 chairs, 2 on each side. She pointed, "That one's you, that one's me. The others are for whoever's kind." I hung it on the fridge and stood staring at it long after she went to bed. That was the home I had always needed, and now I was building it with her. Meanwhile, my old family kept performing grief like it was theater. Aunt Lorna posted cryptic Bible verses. Grandma changed her profile photo to a black square. Dad apparently had to move in with Yasmin after their lease ended on the apartment. They'd scrambled to rent post-foreclosure. The golden girl, I heard someone say, now has golden baggage. I didn't reach out, not out of hatred, but out of clarity, because I finally understood something fundamental. I didn't destroy their lives. I just stopped financing the illusion of them. They had built a shrine to hierarchy and labeled it family. And I had been the silent scaffolding, holding it all together, until I wasn't. And when I let go, it wasn't a collapse. It was a truthquake, one they never saw coming, because they never saw me at all. Ava was asked to write a short essay titled, "My Safe Place." She didn't even ask for help. Her teacher later emailed me a photo of what she wrote. "My safe place is with my mum. We live in a home with laughing and basil and pancakes. She always listens to me. She helps other kids too. She says no one gets to hurt me just because they love me. That's not real love. Real love is soft and strong, like her." I sat at my desk for 10 minutes after reading it, unable to move. Soft and strong. That's what we had become. Sometimes, I still passed by the edge of that old neighborhood on the way to appointments. The street signs looked the same. The trees hadn't moved, but everything felt distant. One day, as we drove by, Ava reached for my hand. "Are we really never going back?" I looked at her, not just her face, but her peace, the way she sat, with her shoulders down, her jaw relaxed, her whole body at ease. "We're not," I said softly. She nodded. "Good." And we drove on. No tears, no longing. Just forward. They kept trying to rewrite the narrative. Messages got to me through third Parties come home, they miss you, let it go. But I knew what they really meant. When they said home, they meant the place I saved and then reclaimed. When they said miss, they meant they missed the version of me who didn't fight back. When they said let it go, they meant bury it, like we always did. But I'm not a shovel, I'm a mirror, and I don't crack just because the reflection makes them uncomfortable. Spring came, our tomatoes began to fruit. Ava's drawings now filled a full bulletin board. In the hallway, her latest one had clouds shaped like animals, a sun with a smile, and in the center our house again, this time with a mailbox labeled with her full name, .ownership, .belonging, not just in ink, but in reality. While cleaning out a final box from storage, I found something strange, a map Ava had once drawn when she was 4. She had called it Our Way Home. It showed crooked streets, stick-figure houses, and arrows pointing in circles. She had drawn it the summer we spent bouncing between apartments, right before I gave in and moved back into my parents' house. She had thought we were lost. But now I looked at that old map and realized something profound. I didn't burn a bridge when I left. I burned the map, the one that led us back to pain, the one they made me follow again and again, thinking I had no other route. But I did. And this time, I didn't just find the road out, I erased the way back. That night, I walked into Ava's room to find her asleep, curled up with a stuffed giraffe and an open book across her chest. Her mouth twitched into a half smile as she dreamed. I sat beside her for a long while, brushing hair from her forehead, feeling her breath against my palm. This child, this wild, kind, unbreakable spirit, she would never have to wonder if she was too loud, too sensitive, too much. She would never have to earn love again. And I was no longer the girl begging for scraps at her family's table. I was the one who built a new table from nothing. For us, and for whoever else needed a seat. If you made it to the end, comment the word bloom, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with friends and family.